Powerful zero balancing stories.
There's one that stands out off the top of my head. She was a 14-year-old. I'd seen her not regularly, but on and off over a period of years from, I don't know, when she was about 7 or 8, with probably growing aches and pains and that sort of thing. And of course, in New Zealand, they're quite sporty. So it was maybe some injuries that they may have been to a physio, they may have been wherever, and so it kind of came, and zero balancing seemed to help them with that. But there was one time that I saw her and her mum in the phone call to actually book the appointment, said she's been diagnosed with anxiety and I've lost my daughter. And she said, don't let her know that you know that. She's coming because she thinks she's hurt her back, or she's got something going on with her back. So I said, okay, fine. So daughter turns up, and I knew her, and it was fine. And so just basically did a ZB session with her. Nothing special, nothing different, but my internal focus was on just helping her deal with whatever she needed to deal with. I had a text message from the mother about 2 hours later, and it was just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I have my daughter back. She's actually talking to all of us. She's smiling. She's happy. Thank you. So it was just like, okay. And it was an incredible feeling to get that. But at the end of the day, I wasn't aiming for anything. All I was doing was a session. And it just goes to show that zero balancing can work with so many different things.
I was a motorcycle courier in London for 3 years and had about 30 odd accidents in that time, because it was my daily job. Winter, summer, ice, snow, rain, whatever, London traffic. So my body was quite battered on a physical level, and I was also quite emotionally battered and shut down from boarding school. So having what became known to me as a safe touch that could engage me and also release the shock and trauma of all those motorcycle accidents. My body, I had recurring flashbacks in zero balancing sessions that I would suddenly remember that accident or this accident or that taxi that pulled out on me that I went to the top of, or getting stuck in that ditch in the ice around Heathrow Airport. And all these things which were deeply embedded in my body were being remembered and released as I received zero balancing, and my neck freed up where it had been stuck for years. I didn't even know it was stuck. You just learned to live with it. But on a deeper level, it began to really help me find deep stability within me. In all this emotional turmoil that had been kind of the guiding and the dominance in my life began to be put second to a centered, calm place, which I see as comes from being touched at the bone level.
There's one actually that does stick in my head though, which is a very long time ago. He's a really lovely man. He worked at the post office and he'd hurt his back, possibly not very surprisingly. And his back pain was so bad he couldn't work. And he said it was like having an iron bar in his back. And we did a few sessions, I can't remember how many. And then at one point, the bar lifted, it transformed and lifted. And, he's someone who'd done a lot of different things before. He'd been through a lot of medical things, he'd seen lots of people. He was quite desperate, really. And I wouldn't even say it was that much to do with me, but the quality, the way that zero balancing works enabled him, I would say, to lift his bar. And it always struck me as, a really great thing for him. And it was sort of transformational as well, because there were lots of other bars, if you like, that he had going on. So he could talk about that as well. He made those links.
It does so many different things for so many different people. There's a huge spread of possibility with zero balancing because it encompasses all of energy and all of structure, really. I remember a woman phoning up from Loo in Cornwall, which is a long way away, and she'd heard about zero balancing and the work I was doing, and she wanted to drive up because she'd had whiplash 7 years before and had never got over it. She'd had physios work on her, she'd had acupuncturists work on her, she'd had osteopaths and chiropractics, but somebody had mentioned me, and she was desperate and also inspired. So she came up, and there we were, the joint between the skull and the atlas. And one of the places we evaluate in zero balance is the glide, the way the skull moves on top of the neck. When I came there, I could feel the restriction. It was restricted coming up, and as I dropped the skull back down in relation to the neck, it just juddered. And there is this theory in zero balancing that when we have an emotional experience crossing over with a physical experience, it can get locked into the body. So we might have a car accident while we're upset. So I asked her what was going on at the time of the original car accident. And she told me the story of her life and what was going on at the time. There was quite a charge in. And this is where zero balancing can be so fantastic, because we can hold a still field that engages that locked piece, a standing wave, as it were. And that was stuck into this area of her neck, the shock of the car accident combined with the emotionality of her life at that point in her life. And as I held it in great stillness and focus, it gave it the opportunity just to let go. I was holding it, it didn't need to hold on to itself anymore. And she reported back a few days later that all the pain was gone. And I only ever saw her for that one session. She never came back. And we spoke about a month later, and she was still in perfect freedom in her neck, and it was gone.
A lady in her 30s who had some health issues and had in the past suffered, I think it's hemiparesis. Paresis, it's where you lose senses in one side of your body. I was actually still within the certified program. So I was still within that 3 years, and she was somebody that I used to go and do a massage for. And she rang me and said that she was having this problem where she couldn't feel one side of her body. And I used to go to her home, and I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to massage her. I'm going to try some zero balancing. I'll work with the protocol. I'll work with what I see in front of me. I'll work with what she's telling me, and I'll just let my hands do whatever they need to do into what I feel. And what really, really surprised me, and again, because I was maybe a little bit more receptive at that time, when I was touching certain points, I was hearing musical tone or musical notes. Now, I don't read music, I don't play music, I'm probably tone deaf, but I knew what I was feeling. So I would just hold that area for as long as was needed. And it was a short session. And when I finished, she said to me, "Can I just ask you a question? When you are holding those places or pressing on those places, what are you feeling?" And I remember saying, well, this sounds very, very odd, but it's not so much a feeling, but it's a sound. It's a sense of a vibration that is transmitted as a sound to me. She said, well, what type of sound is it? And I said, okay, here we go. It's like a musical note. It could be a C, it could be a D, it could be an F. She said, well, when you had your hand or your fingers on that particular place, I think it may have been on her sacrum. She said, what sound was it? And I said, well, it was an F and it needs to be a C. So I just held it until it went from an F to a C. She said, well, that's astounding. She said, because that's what I felt. And she said, if you go to the drawer opposite the bed, pull the drawer out, there's 2 CDs in there, take them home, they're yours. And she used to sing in a choir solo. And she said, so when you see, I'm getting goosebumps. She said, when you were touching me, I could feel the music in my body. I could feel the vibration in my body. She said, and I haven't sung since my trauma, but take those home and listen to them. And that whole session was just validated that what I felt, what I sensed, what I heard was real, and it was benefiting her on a level that I couldn't really explain and didn't really need to explain. And a week later, she rang me and said that within 48 hours, she'd been able to get out of the bed and shuffle down the stairs. And within the week, she was up again on both feet. She hadn't been able to get out of bed for a couple of weeks prior to me giving her that session.
I had a woman come for nightmares, and again, the ability to touch somebody and bring them, nightmares are in the emotional body, and our soft tissues are so much about how we are, and our bone is about who we are. So handling her at the bone level gave her a stability in herself and gave her an anchor in her life from all this emotional stuff that was going on. And her nightmares faded away gradually over the next 10, 15 sessions. She came weekly, which is quite a commitment to come for that many sessions weekly. And she continued to come weekly for a year after that. The nightmares had ceased, but then we started moving into the emotional life work that she was doing and trying to make sense of her relationships and her existence.
Yeah, somebody else enables her to keep her medication very, very small. She has a very rare form of epilepsy, and the zero balancing enables her to keep minimal medication. So that is life-changing in a different way.